Professional football player Damar Hamlin collapsed on the field and suffered a cardiac arrest. Thankfully, he was successfully resuscitated, but what exactly happened? How can an athlete who's otherwise young and healthy suddenly have his heart just stop working? Well, hello everyone, I'm Mike Muellner. I'm an internal medicine doctor from Los Angeles, California, and today I wanted to make this video to try to clear up some misconceptions about cardiac arrests and also give you guys an idea of what I think might have happened to Damar Hamlin. So I'll play a video of what happened here. So it looks like he gets tackled and then stands up very briefly and then seems to faint or pass out. And then shortly thereafter, the emergency medical services come by and they do CPR, and thankfully he gets successfully resuscitated. So if you look at the mechanism of this injury, the way it all went down, first he gets tackled and he suffers an impact to the center of the chest, and then stands up, is lucid for a brief second, and then passes out. And so that mechanism of injury has a lot of people talking about something called CommotioCordis. And so this is a very rare condition. I'm talking like less than 50 cases per year in the United States. So it's an extremely rare condition. And what it is it's a type of cardiac arrest that happens not from a heart attack. There's no damage to the heart muscle itself, but instead what happens is you have a traumatic injury to the thorax or the area of the chest in front of the heart. And then this can then interrupt the electrical conduction through the heart, disrupting the heart rhythm, leading to ventricular fibrillation, very dangerous arrhythmia that then causes cardiac arrest. But here's the thing, people are constantly bumping into things, hitting their chests. I mean, I think I probably banged my chest against something just walking around the house in the past week, yet we don't just drop over dead from cardiac arrests. And so the reason for that is that for CommotioCordis to occur, the impact has to occur at a very specific moment in the cardiac cycle. It must happen at about a 40 millisecond interval right at the beginning of the upstroke of the T wave. If you look at an EKG, you got the P wave, QRS, and then the T wave right here at that upstroke. If an impact happens right there, and this is during the part of the cardiac cycle where the heart is relaxed, right at that specific instant, that's when you can disrupt the heart rhythm and lead into this potentially fatal arrhythmia. So as you can see, the odds of that happening are really, really slim, but nevertheless, it happens every year. The common case that you hear, or at least the one that we learn about in medical school, is of a child or an adolescent who's playing baseball and then misses the ball goes directly into the chest, and then suddenly causes the child to pass out and then is then found pulseless and cardiac arrest. And the reason we learn about this with children or adolescents is because it's much more likely to happen to them than adults, just because the chest wall is so much smaller and less developed. Now, going back to what happened to Damar Hamlin, first of all, I'm not his physician. I don't have all the details, and really a lot of this is just speculation. But if you look at the mechanism of his injury, he was tackled, he suffered trauma to the chest, and then went into cardiac arrest. It certainly is suspicious for CommotioCordis. Now, that being said, there are certain characteristics which don't quite fit. For one, he's not a child or an adolescent. He's a full-grown adult with a very well-developed chest wall, which would have been more resistant to these sort of injuries. Number two, it wasn't like this was a fast projectile like a baseball or a well-timed punch to the chest. He was tackled. Now, that could certainly do it. Any trauma to the chest, if it happens right at that perfectly timed instant in the cardiac cycle, it can cause CommotioCordis. But still, these characteristics would be a little bit unusual. Also, keep in mind that since this is a very rare condition, we have to keep in mind other potential causes of cardiac arrest as well. Congenital abnormalities or undiagnosed cardiomyopathy, where there's a problem with the structure of the heart, any sort of underlying arrhythmias, electrical abnormalities like long QT syndrome or medications that can interact with that, can also predispose to potentially life-threatening arrhythmias, alcohol use or drug use, or even recent illnesses, even something as seemingly benign as the stomach flu. If it causes vomiting, diarrhea, this can make your electrolytes go out of whack, which can make these potentially life-threatening arrhythmias more likely to occur. And so with all these different possible explanations for cardiac arrest, it's important to avoid what we call in medicine anchoring bias. So this is when you base your medical decisions or your diagnostic workup on the first piece of information that you hear. So here we listen to a story about somebody who's tackled, suffers trauma directly to the chest, and then goes into cardiac arrest. Pretty easy to have anchoring bias and then just really focus on that initial impact injury, forgetting that CommotioCordis is itself a very rare diagnosis and there's lots of other causes for cardiac arrest which are more common. Okay, so I know all that might seem kind of unsatisfying. I mean, it's just a bunch of speculation, and the truth is we don't have all the information yet, so it's too early to draw any conclusions, but those are some of the things that doctors think about when evaluating someone who has suffered a cardiac arrest. And finally, I just wanted to touch on a few potentially life-saving things that you can do for someone who might be suffering a cardiac arrest. The most important thing is CPR with chest compressions right away. Also, if you have basic life support training, use of a defibrillator would be key in this situation. Ventricular fibrillation is exactly the kind of heart rhythm abnormality that would be treated with defibrillation. Okay, thanks for joining me in this video. I hope you found it to be informative, and I think I speak for all of us when I say that we are rooting for Damar Hamlin on the road to recovery. We want to see him make a complete recovery from this. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys next time.